It's story time. Hansel and Gretel. Once upon a time, near a large wood, lived a poor woodcutter with his wife and 2 children by his former marriage. The boy's name was Hansel and the girl Gretel. They were so poor that they hadn't even bread to eat. One day he sighed and said to his wife, "What will become of us? How can we feed our children?" "We will do this, my husband," said his wife. "We will lead them into the thickest part of the wood. We will make a fire, give them each a little piece of bread, and leave them there so they cannot find the way home again." "No, wife, that is something I can never do. How can you think of such thing?" said the husband. "Oh, you fool! Then the 4 of us will die of hunger. You better build coffins for us." However, this woman left him no peace until he agreed, saying, "Oh, I shall regret this." The 2 children overheard what the stepmother said to their father. Gretel wept bitterly and said to Hansel, "What will become of us?" "Be quiet, Gretel," he said. "Do not cry. I will think of something. God will not forsake us." And as soon as their parents had fallen asleep, Hansel got up, he went out and put as many white pebbles into his pocket as he could, and he went back to sleep. The next morning, before the sun arose, the wife went and awoke the 2 children. "Get up, you lazy things! We are going into the forest to chop wood." As they were walking, Hansel would drop a pebble out of his pocket upon the path. When they came to the middle of the forest, the father told the children to collect wood. He made fire, and they fall asleep. When they woke up, it was quite dark, and Gretel began to cry. "How shall we get out of the wood?" But Hansel tried to comfort her by saying, "Wait a little while till the moon rises, and then we will quickly find the way home." The moon soon shone forth, and Hansel, taking his sister's hand, followed the pebbles, which glittered like new coined silver pieces, and showed them the path. All night long they walked on, and as day broke, they came to their father's house. They knocked at the door, and when the wife opened it and saw Hansel and Gretel, she exclaimed, "You wicked children! Why did you sleep so long in the wood? We thought you were never coming home again." But their father was very glad, for he had grieved his heart to leave them all alone. The stepmother wasn't pleased at all, so she forced him to do the same thing again. In the end, he consented, but with a heavy heart. The children, however, had heard the conversation as they lay awake, and as soon as the old people went to sleep, Hansel got up, intending to pick up some pebbles as before. However, the wife had locked the door so that he could not get out. Nevertheless, he comforted Gretel, saying, Do not cry. Sleep in quiet. The good God will not forsake us." Early in the morning, the stepmother came and did the same thing. On the way, Hansel broke his in pocket, and every now and then he would drop a crumb upon the path. They fall asleep in the woods, but when they got up to find the path, they could not see any crumbs, for the thousands of birds in the woods and fields had picked up them all. Hansel kept saying to Gretel, "We will soon find the way." But they did not. They walked for 3 days. At about noonday, they saw a cottage made of bread and cakes, and the window panes were of clear sugar. They were so hungry that they craved to taste it. "We will go in there," said Hansel, "and have a glorious feast. I will eat the piece of the roof, and you can eat the window." So Hansel reached up and broke a piece of the roof in order to see how it tasted, while Gretel stepped up to the window and began to bite it. Then a sweet voice called out in the room, "Tip-tap, tip-tap, who raps at my door?" And the children answered, "The wind, the wind, the child of heaven." And they continued eating. Then the door opened and a very old woman came out. She led them into her cottage, saying that she will do no harm to them. She gave them so much food: a good meal of milk and pancakes with sugar, apples and nuts was spread on the table, and in the back room there were 2 nice little beds covered with white, where Hansel and Gretel laid themselves down to rest. The old woman behaved very kindly to them, but in reality she was a wicked witch who captured children. Every morning the old witch would come to the cage and say, "Hansel, stretch out your finger that I may feel whether you are getting fat." But Hansel used to stretch out a bone, and the old woman, having very bad sight, wondered why he did not get any fatter. When 4 weeks passed and Hansel still kept quite lean, she lost all her patience. "Gretel," she called out in passion, "get some water quickly. Be Hansel fat or lean, this morning I will cook him." Oh, how the poor little sister grieved. "Dear God, help us now, please." Early in the morning, Gretel was forced to go out, fill the kettle, and make a fire. Somehow, Gretel deceived the witch and gave her a push so that she immediately fell right in the oven. The evil witch burned to ashes. Gretel ran to Hansel and called out, "Hansel, we are saved! The old witch is dead!" They hugged so tightly. Now, as there was nothing to fear, they went into the witch's house, where in every corner were caskets full of pearls and precious stones. "These are better than pebbles," said Hansel, putting as many into his pocket as he could. and so did Gretel. "We must be off now," said Hansel, "and get out of this enchanted forest." After walking long, they finally saw their father's house. Then they began to run, burst into the house, and they fell into their father's arms. He had not had one happy hour since he had left the children in the forest. His wife was gone, and he had his children back now. He was the happiest father on earth. The children had a surprise for their father. Gretel shook her apron, and the pearls and precious stones rolled out upon the floor. Hansel threw down one handful after other out of his pocket. A lot of problems were solved now. All their sorrow ended, and they lived together in great happiness.